What if I told you that somewhere in the forgotten corners of medieval Europe, there once ruled a king who believed human teeth could unlock the secrets of death itself? A monarch so obsessed with mortality that he crafted a crown from the molars and canines of his own subjects, claiming it granted him visions of the afterlife. This is the story of King Aldric, the Tooth-Bearer of Valdres, a tale so disturbing that historians have buried it for over 600 years. In the year 1297, in a small kingdom nestled between the Carpathian Mountains, something went terribly wrong. What started as a king's quest for divine knowledge became a descent into madness that would claim hundreds of lives and leave an entire bloodline cursed. The crown still exists today, hidden away in a monastery vault, and those brave enough to examine it report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the teeth themselves remember the screams of their former owners. King Aldric ascended to the throne of Valdres at the age of 23, following the sudden death of his father from what court physicians called the black bile sickness. But Aldric's grief transformed into something far more dangerous than sorrow. He became consumed with a single, terrible question: what happens to the soul at the moment of death? The young king began consulting mystics, alchemists, and anyone who claimed knowledge of the afterlife. It was an ancient crone named Morrigan who first planted the seed of his obsession. She told him that teeth, being the hardest substance in the human body, retained the memories of their owners even after death. More importantly, she claimed that a crown made from the teeth of the dying could grant its wearer visions of the realm beyond. At first, Aldric collected teeth from the already dead. Graveyards were disturbed, corpses exhumed under cover of darkness, but the visions never came. The crone insisted the teeth needed to be fresh, taken from the living at the moment of their final breath. This is when King Aldric crossed a line from which there would be no return. The first victim was a condemned criminal, a horse thief named Willem. Aldric personally oversaw the execution, but instead of a swift beheading, he ordered the man's teeth to be extracted one by one while he still breathed. 32 teeth were harvested that day, and that night, Aldric claimed to have his first vision. He saw Willem standing at the edge of a vast grey plain, beckoning him forward. Word spread through the castle like plague. The king had seen the afterlife. Nobles whispered that Aldric had been granted divine sight, while servants crossed themselves and avoided eye contact. But the king needed more teeth. The visions were brief, fragmented. He needed a complete crown to unlock the full mysteries of death. What followed was a reign of terror disguised as religious fervor. Aldric established what he called the Sacred Harvest, claiming that those chosen to contribute their teeth would be blessed in the afterlife. Families were told it was an honor, a divine calling. The king's guards would arrive at homes throughout Valdres, selecting the healthy and the young for the harvest. The process was always the same. The chosen would be brought to the castle's lowest chamber, where Aldric had constructed what he called the Revelation Room. Victims were strapped to a stone table while the king himself, wearing increasingly elaborate robes, would extract their teeth with ceremonial golden pliers. He claimed each extraction brought him closer to God, each scream a prayer ascending to heaven. As his crown grew, so did Aldric's madness. Courtiers reported that the king would spend hours alone in his chambers, speaking to invisible presences. He claimed the crown allowed him to converse with the dead, that he was receiving divine instructions on how to rule. But his edicts became increasingly bizarre and cruel. He banned laughter, claiming it offended the spirits. He ordered all mirrors in the kingdom destroyed, insisting they were portals that allowed evil to enter the world of the living. The crown itself became a horrific masterpiece. Nearly 300 teeth of various sizes were arranged in 7 concentric circles, held together by bands of silver that had been blessed by unwilling priests. The largest molars formed the base, while delicate incisors created an intricate pattern at the crown's peak. Between each tooth, Aldric had inscribed microscopic prayers in Latin, many of which were later discovered to be blasphemous inversions of traditional Christian verses. But the most disturbing aspect of the crown wasn't its appearance, it was the sounds it allegedly made. Multiple witnesses reported hearing faint whispers emanating from the crown, especially during the full moon. Some claimed they could make out individual voices, pleading for rest or crying out in pain. The castle's chaplain, Father Benedict, wrote in his secret diary that the crown seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slightly as if it were alive. As Aldric's harvest continued, his kingdom began to crumble. Families fled across the borders, leaving behind empty villages and abandoned farms. Trade ceased as neighboring kingdoms refused to deal with what they called the Tooth-Mad King. But Eldric, lost in his visions, saw only divine providence. He believed he was preparing his subjects for a glorious afterlife, that each extracted tooth brought his entire kingdom closer to salvation. The end came on a winter night in 1304, during what would be Aldric's final harvest. A young woman named Ilara had been chosen for the sacred extraction. As the king prepared his golden pliers, she looked directly into his eyes and spoke words that froze the blood of everyone present. She said, "I see them too, your majesty. All the souls you've trapped in that crown. They're screaming." According to the sole surviving witness, Brother Thomas, what happened next defied explanation. The crown began to emit a low humming sound, growing louder until it became a deafening shriek. Aldric fell to his knees, clawing at his head, crying out that the teeth were biting him from the inside. The stone walls of the chamber began to crack, and a wind rose from nowhere, extinguishing every candle and torch. When dawn broke, they found King Aldric dead in his throne room, still wearing the crown. But his mouth was full of teeth, not his own, but the teeth from the crown, somehow forced back between his lips, until his jaw was grotesquely distended. His eyes had turned completely white, and his face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The crown had changed to, instead of gleaming white enamel, every tooth had turned black as coal. When the surviving courtiers tried to remove it from the dead king's head, they found it had fused to his skull. The only way to separate crown from corpse was to take both head and crown together, which is exactly what the terrified servants did. Brother Thomas, the monastery's historian, wrote that the crown was sealed in a lead-lined box and hidden in the deepest vault beneath the abbey. He noted that even through the heavy metal, strange sounds could be heard on certain nights, a soft clicking, like teeth chattering in the cold, and occasionally, what sounded like distant sobbing. But the story doesn't end with Aldric's death. The curse of the tooth crown seemed to follow his bloodline. His younger brother, who assumed the throne, died within a year, found in his bed with every tooth missing from his mouth. His nephew, the next heir, lasted only 6 months before he was discovered in the castle's abandoned revelation room, apparently having tried to extract his own teeth with a rusty knife. The kingdom of Valdris ceased to exist within a decade, its remaining population scattering to the four winds. The castle fell to ruin, though local peasants reported seeing lights in the abandoned revelation room on moonless nights. Some claimed to see the ghostly figure of King Aldric, still wearing his crown of blackened teeth, wandering the empty halls in search of new subjects to harvest. Over the centuries, the location of the crown has become one of history's most closely guarded secrets. The monastery that houses it has changed hands 17 times, but the vault has never been opened. Each generation of monks is told the same thing: the crown must never see daylight again, for to do so would risk unleashing the accumulated rage and despair of its 300 victims. In 1943, a Nazi archaeological team attempted to locate the crown, believing it to be an occult artifact of immense power. They found the monastery and demanded access to the vault. The monks, rather than comply, set fire to the entire building, preferring to die than risk the crown's release. When Allied forces investigated the ruins months later, they found the vault had survived the fire, its contents intact, but forever changed by the flames that had raged above. Modern attempts to study the crown have been few and far between, but always end in tragedy. In 1978, a team of archaeologists gained permission to examine it using non-invasive techniques. 3 of the 5 team members died within a week of the examination, 1 in a car accident, 1 from a sudden heart attack, and 1 who simply disappeared, leaving behind only a note that read the teeth, "Remember everything." The most recent incident occurred just 15 years ago, when a documentary crew attempted to film the crown for a television special about cursed artifacts. The footage they captured was never aired, but leaked clips show something that defies explanation. The crown appears to be moving, its blackened teeth shifting and grinding against each other as if chewing. The crew's audio equipment picked up what sounded like multiple voices whispering in medieval dialects, all repeating the same phrase: "He promised us paradise." Today, the crown of human teeth remains locked away, its location known only to a select few. The monastery that guards it has no official name, no address that appears on any map. The monks who watch over it have taken vows of silence that extend far beyond their normal religious duties. They speak to no one about what they guard, not even to each other. But sometimes, on nights when the wind howls through the mountains, local villagers report hearing a sound carried on the air, the distinct clicking of hundreds of teeth chattering together, as if trying to speak. Some say it's just the wind through old stones, but others know better. They know that some hungers never die, that some madness echoes through the centuries, waiting for the right moment to return. King Aldric believed that death was just a doorway, that his crown of teeth would grant him eternal sight into the realm beyond. In a way, perhaps he was right. Perhaps he found exactly what he was looking for, an eternity trapped with the screams of his victims, forever wearing a crown that has become his eternal prison. The next time you feel a sudden chill, the next time you hear an unexplained sound in the darkness, remember King Aldric and his terrible crown. Remember that some knowledge comes at a price too horrible to pay, and that the dead don't always rest as quietly as we hope. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. And somewhere, in a vault that daylight never touches, 300 teeth continue their vigil, waiting for their mad king to rise again.